My wife decided to end our marriage, confessed she had cheated, and now, as I found happiness with someone new, she's filled with regret. We had shared 10 years together as husband and wife, 10 formative, life-defining years, with 2 wonderful kids still in elementary school. In the beginning, everything felt like a dream. For the first 7 years, I thought I was living inside a perfect marriage. She was attentive, supportive, and incredibly nurturing. Our life was full of laughter, family dinners, bedtime stories, and quiet moments that made everything seem so solid and secure. She was more than just my wife. She was my best friend and my teammate in building a family. But around our 7th anniversary, things began to shift. At first, the changes were subtle. A missed conversation here, a distant expression there. I chalked it up to stress. Parenting, careers, life's daily grind. I didn't want to believe that anything deeper was wrong. I was committed to her, to us. So I did what any devoted husband would do. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. We tried marriage counseling more than once. I researched relationship advice obsessively, listening to hours of podcasts, reading articles, and books about reigniting intimacy, restoring emotional closeness, and overcoming marital ruts. I initiated date nights, made sure we had one-on-one time, and even revisited the small romantic gestures we used to enjoy when we first fell in love. I put my full heart into rebuilding what I thought we were losing, but no matter what I did, it always felt like I was the only one rowing the boat. There was an emotional gap growing between us, and I couldn't close it, no matter how hard I tried. I started questioning myself. Was I not present enough? Too consumed with work? Was I failing as a husband in some way I couldn't see? Then, out of nowhere, she told me she wanted a divorce. It wasn't a conversation. It was a decision, delivered like a verdict. I was devastated, blindsided. I loved her deeply, and I didn't want to give up on our family. I begged her to reconsider, to take time, to think of our children. She wavered briefly, but ultimately, she stuck to her choice. She was leaving, and nothing I could say would change her mind. She never gave me a clear explanation. I was far from perfect, yes, but I had never betrayed her. I was never abusive or neglectful. I worked hard, provided well, and was fully invested in our marriage. Especially in those difficult final years, I had tried everything to make things work. About a month after she filed, I found out she was already dating someone new. Another month later, she introduced him to our kids. That was a punch to the gut I hadn't anticipated. But the real shock came during the legal discovery process of our divorce. That's when she confessed. She had been unfaithful, not just once, but multiple times, starting roughly 3 years before the separation. One affair had lasted for a year. She claimed it only involved a few physical encounters, but it was clear from the timeline that this wasn't just a lapse in judgment. It was a pattern of deception. I was floored. The lies, the secrecy, it shattered my entire perception of our relationship. I realized that the distance I had felt for years wasn't imagined. It wasn't about life stress or mismatched priorities. She had already emotionally exited the marriage long before she filed the paperwork. That day, when it all came out, was easily the worst of my life. But in a cruel way, it brought clarity. It helped me understand why my efforts had always fallen short. I wasn't fighting to save a partnership. I was clinging to something she had already left behind. 6 months passed. I racked up close to $100,000 in legal expenses. The divorce dragged on, emotionally and financially draining. Then, out of nowhere, she reached out and asked if we could try again. She wanted to reconcile, and to my disbelief, she was still dating the same man she'd brought into our children's lives. But she swore she'd break it off if I gave her another chance. Why the sudden turnaround? Part of me thinks she realized what she had lost. Perhaps she saw how happy I'd become with the new woman in my life. A woman who is, by every measure, remarkable. Or maybe the reality of her new financial situation hit her hard. With my income out of the equation, her lifestyle had clearly changed. She insisted it wasn't about money, though. She said it was seeing me with our kids, how loving, patient, and attentive I was. That made her regret everything. I agreed to meet her and hear her out. After 10 years of marriage, I owed her at least that much. She was emotional, apologetic. She admitted to the affairs, the lies, and the pain she had caused. She also, unsurprisingly, tried to share the blame, said my emotional unavailability had pushed her away, made her feel isolated. But to me, that excuse didn't hold water. I had been right there, trying to connect, begging for her to meet me halfway. Even so, I believe she truly regrets her actions. I believe her tears are real. But regret doesn't erase betrayal. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Some things break in ways that can't be fixed. So I said no. I told her I couldn't go back. Our divorce was finalized just weeks ago. Since then, she's been relentless, texting me almost every day. She says she can't sleep, can't move on. It's hard to watch someone you once loved suffer like that. But I remind myself, she made these choices. She walked away. And I'm finally beginning to heal. The woman I'm seeing now, she's gentle, wise, and incredibly supportive. She's been my anchor through the storm. And for the record, we met only after my ex had already filed. This isn't some rebound. It's something real, built on mutual respect and honesty. Everything my marriage had lost in the end. Typing all this out still feels surreal. I wonder who in their right mind would even consider trying to fix a marriage so broken. And yet, she had the nerve to ask. I don't love her anymore. But I did, intensely, for a long time. And because of our kids, I know I'll never be able to completely sever ties. We're co-parents for life. That's a weight I carry, but also a responsibility I embrace. Maybe I'm writing this for reassurance, to know that walking away, even after everything, was the right call. Maybe someone out there has walked this same path. Maybe you felt the same mix of grief, anger, and cautious hope. One commenter said, "She says she'll leave him. If you say yes, what part of "you're not her backup plan" doesn't she understand?" Another wrote, "Man, she's selfish and delusional. Be proud of what you tried to do. You held your head high. You stayed kind. That's more than most can say." And someone else said something that stuck with me. "You've been through two of life's cruelest betrayals and you're still standing. That's a strength. Don't open the door to more heartache. If she fooled you once, she can do it again." Those words remind me of how far I've come. They remind me that I'm choosing peace now. And while some nights are still hard, I know in my heart, I made the right choice. She's not seeking reconciliation out of remorse for what she's done to you. This isn't some epiphany about your value as a partner or a newfound clarity about the damage she's caused. No, her sudden interest in patching things up is entirely rooted in her own self-interest. It's not about love, it's about loss, not your loss. Heron. When she decided to walk away from the marriage and chase after other experiences, she broke the one unspoken rule that holds any relationship together. If you play with fire, be prepared to get burned. She took the gamble. She stepped out, not once, but repeatedly, believing that what waited beyond the boundaries of your marriage was better. She convinced herself that she'd find something, or someone, who could offer her more. But now, that illusion has crumbled, and she's racing back toward the familiar. Of course, she won't admit that. She'll tell you she's had time to think, that she misses the love, the connection, the family. She'll paint her change of heart as some deep emotional revelation. But make no mistake, this isn't about rediscovery. It's about regret. It's about consequences. She's not crawling back into your arms because of who you are. She's coming back because her wallet is thinner. Her lifestyle has changed. That other man, the one she left for? Turns out he wasn't the shining beacon she imagined. He's not some fairy tale ending. He's just a rusty shadow of the fantasy she built in her head. And the fact that she's still seeing him while trying to win you back? That's not romantic confusion. That's manipulation. She wants the security of your loyalty while still keeping a foot in her alternate reality. It's absurd. She's trying to juggle both worlds. One where she's the victim seeking forgiveness, and one where she's still indulging the very behaviors that broke you apart. Let's call this what it is. She wants to have her cake and eat it too. Only this cake is stale, bitter, and laced with betrayal. And she's acting as though you're supposed to forget everything that happened. Like the infidelity, the deceit, the emotional chaos, can be erased with a few teary apologies. But you're wiser now. You see through the act, and the beauty of all this? You've already started moving forward. You're no longer anchored to her choices or imprisoned by her guilt. You've found someone new, someone who respects you, who stands by you, who doesn't drag a trail of betrayal behind her. That's not just a relationship. That's a rescue from the emotional wreckage of your past. So when your ex starts showing up with wide eyes and trembling words, remember what's real. Remember the lonely nights, the unanswered questions, the gut feeling that something was wrong while she smiled and lied. Let her face the truth she worked so hard to bury, because reconciliation in her case isn't redemption, it's a safety net. And you, my friend, are not anyone's backup plan. Keep walking forward. Let her wake up next to her knight and realize he's not a hero. He's just another chapter in her list of regrets. Let her stare at the dwindling numbers in her account and feel the cold grip of financial independence she never planned for. Let her sit in silence, thinking about how the man who once gave her everything now gives her nothing at all, except civility, for the sake of the kids. You've done the hardest part already. You didn't just survive heartbreak. You kept your dignity intact. You remained present for your children. You refused to let betrayal turn you bitter. And now, you have something she can't touch. Peace. That peace is sacred. Guard it. Nurture it. It's not just for you. It's for the partner who now stands beside you. The one who loves you without hidden motives. The one who doesn't carry the scent of old lies or the residue of someone else's bed. Hold on to that. Because that's not just love. It's healing. It's the life you rebuilt from ashes. And nothing, absolutely nothing, is more powerful than a person who learns how to love again after being shattered. As for your ex, let her wallow in what she's made. If she's drowning in sorrow, remind yourself, she built that boat. And now, she can sail it. Alone. Keep doing what you do best. Be an amazing father. Cherish the bond with your kids. Protect your new relationship like the rare treasure it is. And don't let guilt sneak back in disguised as compassion. Because true remorse doesn't beg for comfort while still holding on to the sin. True love doesn't return only when all other options fail. And true healing? It never comes from reopening old wounds. She's not your responsibility anymore. Her future is hers to face. And you? You've earned your happiness, your clarity, and your freedom. Walk tall into the life that waited patiently for you to stop looking back. Let her story end. Yours is just beginning, and just when you thought betrayal had exhausted every angle, life threw another cruel twist, this time not from your ex-wife, but from the person you once trusted most. Your best friend. She wasn't just a friend. She was family in every way except blood. She knew your dreams, your fears, and your daily routines. And she knew your husband, because you trusted her with him. You believed she was safe, but she wasn't. She told you herself. The affair started at a children's Halloween party. Harmless flirting, she claimed. She was feeling unfulfilled in her own marriage and let a few words spiral into something dangerous. A text. Then another. Asking for advice. Seeking understanding. Pretending to want perspective, when what she really wanted was attention. And your husband? He gave it to her. The texts got bolder, more personal. Soon they were crossing lines, sexting, secrets, middle-of-the-week meetups while you worked, while the kids were at school. 20 encounters, she said. Just physical, nothing emotional. As if that made it less devastating. And while it was happening, she still sat across from you at brunch, smiling, laughing, asking about your life, your marriage, listening to you talk about your husband while she was sleeping with him. She said she confessed now because she wanted to tell you herself. She didn't want you hearing it from her husband, whom she just told as well. They're separating. She wanted closure. She wanted forgiveness. But what about you? Now you sit with the weight of two betrayals, the man you married and the woman you called your sister, and as hollow as it feels, you're still standing, still breathing, still you. When I picked them up from the airport yesterday, I played it cool. I didn't give a single sign that I knew what had happened, that I knew everything. He was cheerful, relaxed, and chatting as though nothing had changed, as though the life we shared wasn't already crumbling quietly in my chest. I told him I wasn't feeling well, made a show of being tired, and headed straight for the bedroom. I couldn't look at him, not yet. I'm a terrible liar, always have been. So, trying to mask this level of devastation behind a casual smile feels impossible. But I needed time. Time to think, to breathe, to figure out what I'm supposed to do next. Confronting him without a plan feels reckless, yet staying silent feels like I'm giving power to his betrayal. There's another part of this that's eating away at me too. I'm waiting for my friend's husband to make contact. He hasn't reached out yet, but I know it's coming. The silence before. The storm is almost worse. Should I be the one to call him? Should I offer condolences? Support? A mutual sense of bewilderment and grief? I didn't do anything wrong, but somehow I feel stained by this mess. Like I'm guilty simply for being connected to it. It's irrational, I know, but emotions don't always follow logic. Later that night, he climbed into bed beside me. I was already bracing myself for the awkwardness, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. He reached for me. Soft touches, affectionate gestures, trying to initiate something physical, completely unaware that my body was frozen beneath his hands. Normally, after time apart, I would have welcomed that kind of closeness. But this time, I felt sick. I had to bite my tongue just to keep from crying out. I can't pretend forever. Sooner or later, the mask will crack, and when it does, everything will spill out. Naturally, I turned to the community, hoping for guidance, wisdom, anything to help me make sense of this chaos. One of the first comments hit like a hammer. See a lawyer. See where you stand. If he's been hiding this affair, he may have been hiding more. That sentence haunted me. What else could be out there? How deep does this betrayal go? Another commenter said it plainly. This wasn't guilt. If he'd felt guilty, he would have stopped after the first time. 20 times isn't a mistake. It's a relationship. And they were right. That's what stung the most. The depth, the consistency, the ease with which he carried on. The lies, the planning, the ability to look me in the eye and pretend. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was an entire second life. Someone else suggested a strategy. Tell him I'm going for an STD test, that I'm consulting a lawyer. I want him to find somewhere else to stay while we begin working out custody and co-parenting. And if he refuses, move him out of the bedroom, go gray rock. No emotional reactions, no personal discussions, just logistics. And then came a harsh but important truth. Don't assume this was his only affair. If he hid this one so well, who's to say there weren't others? That fear wrapped around me like cold steel. What if this wasn't the exception but the pattern? And what if my best friend, the one who confessed, wasn't trying to help at all? What if she came clean not out of guilt but out of strategy? Because her own husband found out. Because she wanted to soften the blow, get ahead of the story, control how it unraveled. That thought made me shiver. Another commenter captured the absurdity of it all. She started flirting at a children's Halloween party? Classy. Nothing screams maturity like sparking an affair between kids in costumes. That bitter humor helped, strangely enough. It grounded me, reminded me that while this might feel like the end of the world, it's also grotesquely ridiculous. And my husband? Apparently he's been channeling some serious acting skills. Oscar-worthy, really. Carrying on a full-blown affair while still being charming, attentive, and even romantic at home. It's almost chilling, the way he kept it all together. The way he made me feel like I was safe, like I was loved, while sharing our bed, our life, our secrets, with someone else. Even more cutting was the observation that my friend, my so-called sister, was likely using my stories about our marriage as inspiration. When I gushed about how thoughtful he was, how great our intimacy was, she wasn't just listening. She was taking notes, making plans. She turned my happiness into her temptation. And as for him, he didn't resist. He didn't say no. He didn't protect me or our family or our vows. Instead, he became her therapist, her comfort, her escape, and her lover. The most haunting part? While I was decorating the house for Christmas, singing carols, and wrapping gifts for our children, they were still sneaking around, still lying, still betraying me. And when he came home, he acted like nothing had happened, like everything was fine. And maybe that's what hurts the most, that his normalcy now feels like a mask I'll never be able to see behind again. So, where does that leave me? A woman caught between fury and heartbreak, between the urge to scream and the temptation to run. But no matter what I choose next, one thing is certain. I will not be a victim in my own story. It starts now, with a lawyer, with answers, with protecting myself and my children. And let's not forget the emotional aftermath of betrayal. It doesn't end with a single confrontation. It stretches into every conversation, every interaction, every memory you once treasured that now feels tainted. Suddenly, the way he held your hand last week feels like a performance. The way she complimented your dress at the holiday party feels like a lie. Every laugh, every smile, every shared inside joke becomes suspect. You start to wonder how much of my life was real and how much was just carefully masked betrayal. It's a cruel thing to be gaslit by people you love, to doubt your instincts, your memories, your judgment, to be made to feel like you were crazy for ever sensing something was wrong, only to later realize you were right all along. It's more than betrayal. It's psychological warfare, and the worst part? You never saw it coming. But you're not powerless. You're not broken. You are someone who's standing up in the ruins and saying, enough. You are someone who is choosing truth over comfort, clarity over confusion, self-respect over codependence. That takes courage, more courage than either of them ever showed. So take this moment and make it a turning point. You're not just ending a marriage. You're reclaiming your narrative. You're rewriting what it means to be loved, to be supported, to be safe. And while the road ahead may be difficult, it's yours now. You get to choose the pace, the direction, and the companions. Your kids will one day look back and know their mother didn't stay silent. She didn't accept less than she deserved. She didn't normalize deception or tolerate disrespect. She led by example. She chose strength. She showed them what boundaries look like, what healing looks like, what moving on, truly moving on, looks like. And as for your former friend, she'll wake up one day and realize that her choices didn't just cost her a marriage. They cost her something far more rare, a friendship built on years of shared life, shared laughter, shared history. That loss? It will echo through every holiday she spends alone, every milestone she watches from the sidelines. As for your husband, he'll come to realize that loyalty isn't something you get back once broken, that the comfort of your home, your affection, your forgiveness was not a given, but a gift. And once it's gone for good. You're not obligated to be the bigger person. You don't owe them grace. What you owe is to yourself, to protect your peace, honor your pain, and rebuild your life in a way that honors your truth. So stand tall, speak clearly, and walk forward with the fierce, quiet dignity of someone who survived the very people who should have protected her. This chapter ends, but your story? It's only just beginning.